Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Samach Zayin. We are 9 lines from the top of the Amud at the 2 dots. Says the Gemara, Rav Chizda, Rav Sheshes. Now, Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes had 2 very different type of personalities. Rav Sheshes was known for his depth, or actually Rav Chizda was known for his depth, his penetrating mind. Rashi says he was a choref, a sovereign. Whereas Rav Sheshes was known for his broad knowledge, his broad command of Mishnayos and Brises. So what would happen when Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes would meet up? It says the Gemara, Rav Chizda, Rav Sheshes kipagi behadei adadi. When they would meet up with each other, Rav Chizda meratan sevase. Rav Chizda's lips would tremble. We must nice of the Rav Sheshes. Due to Rav Sheshes' broad command of Mishnayos, he was concerned perhaps Rav Sheshes would begin asking him questions. Contradictions from one Mishnah on the other, ask him to answer the kashas. So Rav Chizda's lips was trembling. Rav Sheshes, he also was trembling. Rav Sheshes, Mrata Kula Gufe, his entire body would tremble. Maybe Puli the Rav Chizda, due to the pupil, the sharpness, the penetrating mind of Rav Chizda, he was concerned perhaps Rav Chizda would pepper him with deep and penetrating questions. So this time it was Rav Chizda's turn to ask Rav Sheshes a kasha. A halachic question. Boi minei Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes. What if we have Shnei Batim, Mishnei Tzidi Rishis Rabim? You have Rishis Rabim in the middle, a home on either side of that street. So the area contained between those homes doesn't really have mechitzas, only has 2 mechitzas, one on either side. So far, there's no shayla. Ubo Nachem v'yikifim mechitza b'Shabbos ma'u. And Nachem arrived on Shabbos. And these goyim erected mechitzas. They completed another 2 mechitzas. So you began with 2 mechitzas. It was a Shusarab, a house on this side, a house on this side. And they went ahead and created number 3 and number 4. So now you have a fully enclosed area. Can the residents of these homes carry in that enclosed area? Mao, what is the halacha here? Now, it's too late to make an Eruv. It's already Shabbos. The question is whether they can make bittul. So the member of this home, Eruvin, will be mavatal his usage rights in this newly formed courtyard to Shimon on the other side and allow Shimon to carry from his house to the chutzner. Let's take a look at Rashi inside, which is off to the right, beginning with the word v'yikifim. It says Rashi, Sosmu Rishis Rabim Mekan Mekan. They closed up the Rishis Rabim on both sides. V'nisharaf nei beis habatim kein chatzah. Shabatim psuchas la. And what happened was, it formed something which looks like a chatzah, a courtyard, to which 2 homes have access to. Mao, what is Allah? Shivatal zeh rishus lezeh. And this fellow should be mevatal his rishus to the other one. To allow him to transfer from his house to this newly formed chatzah. Says Rashi, because we've already learned earlier in the second parak of this Masechta, called mechitza anasas b'Shabbos. A mechitza which has been erected on Shabbos, whether b'shayig or b'mezid, is considered to be a valid mechitza. Certainly in this case, the Nachem of Dua, it was erected by Goyim. So certainly there's no question regarding the kashrus, the validity of the mechitza itself. The question is whether bittul will work in this case. Says the Gemara, let's analyze. Continues the Gemara, Aliba demand the Omar. Now, according to Shmuel, which we learned in Daf Samach Vav, who holds Ein bittul rishus mechatz l'chatz. If you have a chatzar on either side of a mechitza, with a Pesach, an access point from one to the other, which allows them, if they wish to join together, make one Eruv, but they don't have to, not required to do so. There's no necessity for them to join together. So in that case, they have the ability to make Eruv, but they're not oyser on each other. Therefore, Shmuel tells us, Ein bittul rishus mechatz l'chatz. You can't make a bittul from one chatzah to the other to allow transferring from one to the other without an Eruv. So according to that shita, there's no question that likewise in our case, bittul cannot be applied. Why? It's a kal v'chomer. Hashta, because since di bo'ulei Eruvin me'esma matzi ma'arvi, in that case, we have a chatzar on either side of mechitza, where if they should wish to do so, they have the ability to make an eruv. Di bo'ulei Eruvin me'esma, they want to make an eruv yesterday on Friday, matzi ma'arvi, they have the ability to do so. Amris ein bitul shus. Michatz l'chatz. Nevertheless, you say that bitul won't work because, true, they were ma'arvin, they had the eruv option open for them, but they're not oisrin. They're not oisrin on each other. There's no need to make eruv. And bitul is only in a case where it's absolutely necessary. It's a necessity. It's an allowance. When you need eruv and for some reason eruv didn't pan out, Chachamim apply leniency. Okay, you can rely on option B on bittul. But michatz l'chatzer, eruv is not a necessity. You can keep to yourself, they can keep to themselves. So although eruv can be enacted there, it's a place which allows eruv, but since they're not oiser each other, meaning there's no need to make the eruv, bittul cannot be applied. So if that's the case, and certainly in our case, it won't work. Should they wish to make an eruv before Shabbos? Can they? No. This place wasn't even enclosed. It was just around. Like Hoshke. Certainly, you can't do bittul. Because there's nothing here. The point of bittul is that it's option B for eruv. A place which allows for eruv. Okay, you didn't do eruv, so Chacham allowed you to do bittul instead. Bittul is an element of eruv. It's a prat in the klal of eruv. It's part of the halachas of eruv. So a place which allows for eruv allows for bittul. But here, it never allowed for eruv to begin with. This place was just a rabbin. So just as eruv doesn't apply, bittul doesn't apply either. So according to that sheet, according to Shmuel, there's no question that bittul cannot apply in this case. It doesn't even apply from chatzah to chatzah, which allows for eruv. Why? Because there's no need to make eruv. Certainly in this case, where eruv is not even applicable to begin with, bittul can't be applied. Kiti boilach. When can we ponder this question? According to whose shita? According to the other shita, which was Rabbi Yehuda, who said you can do bittul from one chatzah to the other. So the question is like this: in that case where they had a viable eruv option there, they could have joined together. Eruv was a possibility because the two chatzeres had a pesach between them, which allowed them to join. So since the eruv option was present, bitul nami matzim avatal. Therefore, bittul is also allowed. Meaning, according to this approach, according to Rabbi Yehuda's approach, as long as eruv is an option, that allows for bittul, even if it's not necessary, it's not needed, they're not oiser each other. Rabbi Yehuda does not need that element of oiser to be present to allow bittul. He says as long as there's some element present, as long as they can make an eruv with each other, they're in the parsha, in the context of eruv, then they can make bittul. So perhaps that's unique, that's over there. However, in our case where they didn't even have the option to make eruv yesterday, bitulin nami loimatzim avatal. So perhaps bittul can't be applied either. Or perhaps makes no difference. Meaning, how far does Rabbi Yehuda go? He certainly doesn't require eruv as a necessity. He says even one chatzah to the other can be mevatel, even though they're not oiser each other. But perhaps because there's at least one element there, the concept of eruv is applicable. So since the eruv is an eruv area, so bittul can be applied as well. So if you need at least one element, that won't apply to our case, because in our case, even eruv was not an option during Ben Hashmashis. This place was open-ended, it's just a rabbin. Or perhaps, makes no difference. Even if there are no elements present, they're not oiser each other from Erev Shabbos, there was no eruv option Erev Shabbos, perhaps you can still apply bittul to allow carrying. Amar le. So Rav Sheshes responded to him, Ein mevatan. Bittul over here is not an option because there are no elements present. During the onset of Shabbos, this place was open, Rishus Haravim, totally exposed. The members of these two homes had absolutely no connection to each other. They weren't oiser in each other. They had no din eruv, and therefore bittul here can't be applied. Continues the Gemara. So Rav Chisda asked him another question. Meis nachri b'Shabbos mau. What if we have two Yisrael living in a chutzah with a guy, and they could have made schirus on Erev Shabbos, they could have made Erev afterwards, but they didn't do that. Come Shabbos, the guy passes away. Question is, can they go ahead and make bittul to each other to allow carrying in this chutzah? Meis nachri b'Shabbos ma. What is the halacha here? So it explains the Gemara. Aliba demanda omar soichrin. According to the shita that allows even to do schirus on Shabbos and then bittul. This was the shita of Rabbi Yehuda earlier. There was that story with the Israelim who arrived at the pundak at that hotel, and the owner arrived on Shabbos. They did schirus and then they did bittul. So according to the shita that allows that to happen, Aliba demand Omar Soichron, according to the shita that says you can do schirus and then bittul, there's no question that in our case you can do bittul. Why? Hashta tati avdinan. If you can do two things on Shabbos, do schirus and then bittul, is there any question that if you only need to do one out of those two, that's allowed? Such as in our case where the guy passed away, schirus here is not needed any longer. So certainly you can just do the bittul. It's only one thing. If you can do two, certainly you can do one. The question, however, can pertain to the shita that holds that you cannot do schirus on Shabbos. You take care of it before Shabbos. So the question is, Tarti, who did Dinan? Is it two things that you can't do on Shabbos? If you need to do schirus and then bittul, that you can't do. That's too much. Hachad avdinan. However, in our case, where all you need is to do one thing, you don't need to do schirus any longer, the guy's not around. All you need to do is bittul. Perhaps that's okay. Or perhaps even that's not okay, you cannot do bittul. Amarle. So Rav Sheshes responded, I maintain you can do bittul. And what does the Svar explains Rashi? Because this Nachri was already here before Shabbos. They had an Erev option available before them. Why? They could have approached the guy, rented his property, and then established an Erev between the Israelim. So Erev was a very real and viable option here at the onset of Shabbos. So now that the guy happens not to be any longer, with schirus is no longer needed, they can do bittul. Because Erev in this chutzner was a viable option for this Shabbos. Theoretically, they could have made an Erev Shabbos. So since Erev applies to this chutzner, likewise bittul can apply. Because bittul is contingent upon the Erev possibility. And in this case, it was a very real possibility to make an Erev. It was within their hands. This place was enabled for an Erev. So that's why he says, Rav Sheshes says, Ani Omer Mevatlan, they can go ahead and make Erev here. And this is very different than the case earlier of the Rosh Hashanah that was enclosed on Shabbos. In that case, there was no Erev option at all. The place wasn't enabled for an Erev at the onset of Shabbos. As opposed to this case where the guy was here before Shabbos. They could have made schirus and Erev. So since this place was enabled for Erev, now that the guy passed away, they don't need to do schirus. They can just do bittul. That's my opinion, says Rav Sheshes. V'hamnuna amar eimevatl. Rav Hamnuna disagrees. He says, even in this case, you can't do bittul. Why? Explains Rashi. Let's see Rashi inside. 4 lines from the bottom. V'hamnuna amar eimevatl. Says Rashi, Kiva di bo Eruvin me'esme lo matzu avdi. They don't really have a real Erev option. Why? Because first they need to do schirus. Lo matzu avdi below schirus. It's a 2-step process. If they would have wanted to make an Erev on Erev Shabbos, how? How are they going to do it? First they have to be soicher from the guy and then make an Erev. So this place is not really enabled for Erev. And therefore, ein bittul el b'makom Erev, bittul only applies where Erev has been fully enabled. Meaning, bittul is an alternative to Erev. Chacham made this allowance. A place where you're meant to carry through an Erev. If you forget to make an Erev, fine, do bittul. But if Erev wasn't really a real option, because in order to get there, you first have to go through schirus. So Rav Nuna holds, we don't consider this place enabled for Erev, and therefore bittul cannot apply. So, in effect, we have three shitas here. Because according to the Manda Omar who says Seicher b'Shabbos, that was the first Manda Omar that he mentioned, which was Rabbi Yehuda, he holds that even if the guy arrived on Shabbos itself, as was the case in the story there, in which case there's no Erev option whatsoever, because even if they do Schiris from the guy, it can't be Ma'ariv on Shabbos. It's too late to make Erev. So he evidently holds that Bittul is totally unrelated to Erev. It's not contingent upon Erev. Even if he can't do Erev, he can still do Bittul. That's Rabbi Yechon's sheet. Rav Sheshes is somewhere in the middle. He says, in this case where the guy happened to be here Erev Shabbos, in which case you had a real Erev option, you could have approached the guy, made Schiris, and then done Erev. So since this place was enabled for Erev from before Shabbos, therefore you can do Bittul. In the case where you didn't do Schiris, you didn't make an Erev, and the guy happens to pass away on Shabbos, you can go ahead and do Bittul. On the other end of the spectrum is Rav Nuna, who holds that Bittul is so deeply connected to Erev, only a place where Erev is an immediate option, where you can actually do direct Erev. You don't need to do Schiris to get to Erev. Only in that case will Bittul work. And therefore, in this case where the guy was here, even though he was here by Erev Shabbos, in which case he could have done Schiris and then proceeded to Erev, but since he could not have done Erev directly, he first needs to do Schiris and then Erev. That's not really called a place which is enabled for Erev, and the Bittul will not work. So, in conclusion, we had two different scenarios which Rav Chizda asked Rav Sheshes. He wanted to know whether Bittul will work. First case was where the Nachum came and surrounded the Erein Shesarabim with a mechitza. And the question was whether the two homes, the homes on either side of that space, can be involved to each other. Rav Sheshes responded no, because this place was created on Shabbos. There was no Erev option in this place at the onset of Shabbos. Therefore, Bittul, as well, cannot be activated. We had another case where Israelim were living in a chutzah with a guy. He was here on Erev Shabbos. They could have been Seicher and then Ma'ariv. They neglected to do so. Come Shabbos, Nachri passes away. The question is, can they just do Bittul? Can the Israelim be mevatel to each other to allow carrying? So we have a three-way machlekes. On the one hand, Rav Yehuda says, certainly, of course you can make Bittul here. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, even when Erev is not even a real option, he says even if the guy would show up on Shabbos, in which case you can't go establish an Erev on Shabbos, you can still make Bittul. So certainly in this case, it would be okay. Because in this case you had a ready option to make Erev before Shabbos. You could have rented and made Erev before Shabbos. According to Shmuel, likewise, in this case, specifically it would be mutter because the guy showed up before Shabbos. In which case you had an option to make Erev after you rented from the guy. Therefore, it's considered to be an area which is enabled for an Erev, and Bittul can be applied as well. On the other hand, we have a Rav Nuna who maintains that only a place which allows Erev directly will allow Bittul. But a place which first you have to be Seicher from the guy, and then proceed to the Erev, that's not really called a place which is enabled for Erev, enabled for proper carrying. The Chum's allowance of making Bittul, which is a kula, does not apply in this situation. Continues the Gemara. So we have a mavoi, this alleyway, several chatzeris which make use of this alleyway, and we have a nachri occupying one of the courtyards. Generally, we require schiris in this case, in order to make a shit of mavoyas here, to merge together the owners of the chatzeris to allow carrying in the mavoi. They need to merge together with a shit of mavoyas, but there's a guy here, so schiris is required. Says the Gemara Chiddush, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmo, Nachrish yesh le Pesach arba laba, posuach lebikum. Let's say this Nachri who's occupying one of the chatzeris has his own private exit route to the back of his chatzer, from his back of his chatzer to the bika, to the valley, to the open air valley. As long as the Pesach is 4 by 4 tefachim, which is large enough to be considered an access point, an exit. In this case, even if he actually happens to use the mavi, he's bringing his camels, his wagons through the mavi the entire day. He does not make the mavi asr on the other Yisraelim. Why? My time. Because he prefers using his own private entranceway, the Pesach that he has from his chutzner out to the bikah, to the open air valley. It's a spacious area. He'd rather use that as his route. So therefore, even though he happens to actually be using the mavi, we don't need to take him into account. He's no longer considered to be a primary user of this mavi. His primary route, his primary Pesach, is that private Pesach that he has. The Gemara is the Shaila. What if this guy's Pesach is not open to the Bika, a huge spacious area? It's open to a karfet, which is a enclosed storage area. It's a large area, but it's an enclosed area. Do we apply the same type of reasoning there? That he prefers this Pesach, which takes him to the open air, rather than the mavi, which is this cramped alleyway, and therefore he doesn't have to be included and reckoned within the mavi users. So what is Allah there? Mao Omar Nachum Bar Ami Mishmei Du Upana. So Nachum Bar Ami said in the name of his Rebbe, who heard from his Rebbe, Allah is as follows: Afilu Pasuch LaKarfef. The same halacha applies if his Pesach is Pasuch to a Karfef. Even there, we say, well, there's more airspace there, it's more spacious. He really prefers that route, and therefore we don't have to reckon him as one of the, include him as one of the users of the mavi, and therefore they don't have to make schiros. Rabbi Yosef Damar Tavai, they both said, well, it depends. Depends how large this karfef is. So if we're speaking about a Nochri who's living in the mavi, base Sasayim Oisu. If the karfef behind this chutzner is only 2 sa in size, which is 100 ams by 50, which is considered to be rather small. So in this case, it's not considered to be open and spacious and oyser. We have to reckon him as we have to include him as one of the mavi users. But if his Pesach takes him to a karfef which is larger in size than 2 sa, that's considered to be open air, considered to be spacious enough for him to prefer that route rather than going through the mavi, and therefore he doesn't have to be accounted for. That's by a guy. The Yisrael. Let's say we have a Yisrael who's occupying a chutzner in this mavi, and he didn't participate in the shit of mavos. And he also has a Pesach through the back of his chutzner, so he doesn't have to have access to the mavi. He has another Pesach taking him out to a karfef. So the halacha there is Beisa Saimeni Oisu. If the karfef is 2 sa in size, in which case he can carry within it. Rashi points out we're speaking about a karfef which was lo yukaf l'dira, was not enclosed for residential purposes, in which case we have a limit of 2 sa. We learned this many times that a karfef which is lo yukaf l'dira can only be carried in if it's up until 2 sa in size. We learned this from the Chatzar Mishkan. It's considered to be personal sized karfef. So up until, if it's 2 sa, if it's based on Saim, if the karfef is 2 sa in size, which allows him to carry the Ein Oyser, then we consider that to be his preferred route, and therefore we don't have to include him in the mavi. Yosim based on Saim Oyser, if the karfef is larger than 2 sa, in which case he can't carry that. So that's not a very convenient route for him. Therefore, we must include him and consider him as a full-fledged member of the mavi, and therefore he has to be included in the shituf, and otherwise he's oyser. Now Rashi points out that even though by the goy we worked with slightly different numbers. If it was larger than 2 sa, it's considered to be open and spacious. If it's merely 2 sa, not necessarily so. The guy doesn't really prefer that, it's not big enough. And here by the Yisrael we say 2 sa is just fine. Why? Why is it sufficient for the Yisrael, not for the guy? So Rashi says because on Shabbos, the Yisrael doesn't really lug around loads. He doesn't have the masois that he's carrying with him, and therefore doesn't need such a big spacious area. 2 sa is perfectly fine for him. And since it's more area and spacious than a mavi, he certainly prefers that route, and he does not have to be regarded as a full-fledged member of the mavoi, and therefore even if he didn't participate in the shittim mavois, it's okay. Continues the Gemara. So Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel told us earlier that if the Nachri, who is living in the mavoi, has a Pesach out to the Bika, to the open valley, then he certainly prefers that route. He doesn't have to be included in the Mavi. On that, we have the Shaila Boy Mine Rava Bar Chaklai. So he asked me, Rav Huna, Pasuch lekarfef mao. Rav Yehuda Shmuel told us about Pasuch lebika. What about if it's Pasuch lekarfef to a large storage area? Shall we say that the same reasoning applies there as well? Amar Leis, he told me, Hari Amru. Chacham said, Beis Asayim Oiser. If the storage area to which the guy has his Pesach is merely 2 sons size, that's not big enough for him. It's not considered to be a proper substitute for the Mavi. And therefore, he's Oiser. He must be reckoned and considered as part of the Mavi users. Yoiser Beis Asayim Oiser. But if it's greater than 2 sons, in which case considered to be large and spacious, he certainly prefers that route. And therefore, he's not Oiser under the name of. So in summary, if we have a Nachri living in a Mavi, and he has a Pesach going out from the back of his chatzar to a Bika, and certainly he prefers that route. He does not have to be included in the Mavi configuration. He's not part of the equation here, and even without Schiris, the other Yisraelim can carry. If it's open to a karf, it depends how big. If it's large in size, greater than 2 sa, then yes. If it's 2 sa or less, then no. When it comes to Yisrael, it's a bit different. If his Pesach is open to a karfif, which is 2 sa, which allows him to carry there, then that's fine. But if it's more than 2 sa, in which case he can't carry there, then he prefers using the mavi where he can carry, and therefore he must be included in the shittim mavos. Continues the Gemara. Let's proceed with the discussion regarding the karfif. A karfif of yosim beis asayim. What is the halacha there? Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Karfif yosim beis asayim. Shloikav l'dir. If you have the storage area which is loyukav l'dir, it wasn't enclosed for residential purposes, and it's large in size. It's more than 2 sa. Afilu kurayim. Even if it's a kur in size or 2 kur, it's huge. Hazorik l'seicha chayif. It's a sayachet. So if somebody throws something into this enclosure from Rosh Hashanah, he's chayiv. My time, a mechitze. It's considered to be a proper mechitze. Ela shemachusera is the urine. It's just lacking residency. There's no residence here. So midrabanan, it's considered like a karmelis. But minat Torah, it's certainly a full-fledged seyachet. Let's take a look at Rashi. Off to the left, drop about 1 or 2 lines. You'll see the Divrei Maschil. Rashi begins with Hazarik l'Seicha. So you have a large size storage area which is not enclosed for deer. Ula tells us in the name of Yechanan, Hazarik l'Seicha Mishas Ram Chayiv Chatas. Va'afagav l'Inyan Tiltal, l'Inyan Issa Tiltal. Shavi Rabban and Karmelis. Although the Chachamim consider it like a Karmelis, She'asru l'Taltal b'Seicha el b'Dalit, and they limited, they restricted Tiltal. You can only carry within 4. That's from the Rabban. That's a chumrah. Midaraisa v'shesayachet gemurah. Minat Torah, it's a proper shesayachet. The mechitzi, it's fully enclosed. El shemachusera is the urine. It's lacking residence. Mishamachi asir Rabban l'tatuli. That's why the Chachamim made it asa to be metatal within this area. So the Chacham only established isurim here. They didn't make things kula. They didn't say, well, it's not enclosed. It's certainly enclosed. It's only a chumrah which they added. Despite the fact that it's a proper Torah, we consider it like a karmelis, and therefore you can't carry within this area. Continues the Gemara. So what we're saying is that the din Rabban will only be applied l'chumrah, not l'kul. Continues the Gemara Masir Rav Huna bar Chidna. We have a brayso which seems to indicate that the chiddush of the Rabbanon will apply even leniently. The brayso says like this: Sela shebeyam. You have a boulder in the middle of the yam, guvay asara, v'rachav arba, 10 tvachim wide, 4 tvachim wide, which is the Rosh Hashanah. Now let's keep in mind that the Yam is a Carmelis. Because it's open, exposed, it appears like a Rishus Harab. This boulder in the middle of the sea is a Rishus HaYachid. Ein metalton loimen teichel Yam. You can't transfer from the boulder to the Yam, which is a Carmelis. Chacham were concerned that if one carries from Rishus HaYachid to a Carmelis, it might lead one to carry from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus Harab, because the Carmelis is reminiscent of Rishus Harab. It's open, it's exposed. Therefore, Chachamim disallowed carrying from Rishus HaYachid to a Carmelis. So in that direction you can't transfer. And likewise, you can't transfer from the Yam, which is a Carmelis, over to the rock, which is Rishus HaYachid. So that's the ratio of the Brisa. Speaking about a Sela, which is Rishus HaYachid, you cannot transfer to and from the Yam. Continues the Brisa with the Seif of the Brisa. Pachas Mekan. If the Sela is lower than 10 Tfachim, in which case it's a Carmelis, just like the Yam, Metaltlin. In this case, you can transfer to and from the Yam, because both of them are regarded as a Carmelis, the rock and the body of water. So that's the Seif of the Brisa. Concludes the Brisa with another statement. Ad Kama, up until, how wide can this rock be? Ad Beis HaSayim. Until a shear of 2 sa, which is 100 amos by 50. Now, we're unsure what the Brisa has in mind with this last statement. Ahaya. On which one? On the ratio on the Sefer. What's the statement pertaining to? Ilay Sefer. Is it meant to be applied to the second part of the Brisa? So the Brisa tells us that this rock is a Carmelis, because it's lower than 10 Tfachim. You're allowed to transfer to and from the Yam. On that, the Brisa tells us. But you should know that's only if the rock is up until 2 sa. Is that true? Beis HaSayim Tfeiloi? Only if it's up until 2 sa, but if it's larger than 2 sa, that halacha no longer applies. Why not? Why can you transfer from this rock, which is lower than 10 Tfachim, which is a Carmelis in either case, to this Yam, which is a Carmelis? V'okmi Carmelis, l'Carmelis kamataltel. He's merely transferring from the rock, which is a Carmelis, to the Yam, which is a Carmelis. So apparently the Brisa is not coming to limit the Sefer in any way. Elalav. Apparently this statement of the Brisa that something only applies when the rock is up until 2 sa in size and no larger, is meant to be applied to the Reish of the Brisa. And this is how we're meant to learn it. The Brisa says, Sela Shabbayam Gavoya Sora V'Rechav Dalad. This Sela is 10 Tvachim high, 4 Tvachim wide, which is a Rishus HaYachid. Ein metalton loy meseichel Yam. You cannot transfer from the Sela, which is a Rishus HaYachid, to the Yam, which is a Carmelis. V'loy min Yam l'soichai. And you can't transfer in the reverse as well, from the Yam, which is a Carmelis, to the Sela, which is a Yachid. V'ad Kama. This halacha, this Isser, to transfer to and from the Yam, until what size? How large is this boulder? Ad Beis HaSayim. Only if it's up until 2 sa, in which case it's considered to be a proper Shech. Ha Yasim Beis HaSayim Metaltalin. Apparently, if it's larger than 2 sa, the Brisa is telling us this halacha won't apply. Alma Carmelisi. Apparently, when it's Sayachit, which has mechitzas, such as this boulder, which has mechitzas, doesn't actually have mechitzas on top, but since it's lifted 10 tfachim off the sea, it's considered like mechitzas. So this mukiv mechitzas, not ledira, right? It's not enclosed for residential purposes, which is larger than 2 sa, is considered to be a carmelis, even lekula, even if it results in leniency, such as in this case, where due to its large size, you're allowed to transfer to and from the Yam. So what do we see? That this halacha of Yosim Beis HaSayim is not only a chumrah, as Ula told us in the name of Yochanan, we see even a kula can result from that halacha. It's not only a chumrah that you can't carry throughout a makkah which is greater than 2 sa, because Chacham considered like a karmas. It even results in a kula. It's considered to be full-fledged karmas. We classified as a karmas with regards to allowing transfer from that area to the Yam, which is a karmas. To Rabbi Yehuda. This seems to be a refutation of Rabbi Yehuda, who tells us that this concept is only a chumrah. But now when it can't result in a kula, Because this area is full enclosed. It's a full-fledged Shayachid. You can't just reclassify it and turn it into a Kamas to allow transfer to the ocean. We only regard it as a Kamas pertaining to Chumrah. You can't carry more than 4 amas within this area because it appears like a Kamas. That's it. You can't apply a Kula to classify like a Kamas to allow transfer into the Yam. Amar Rava. So Rava responded, Mandala Yada, Trutzi Masnais. One who doesn't know how to properly interpret a Brisa. Tiyufta Moisele Rabbi Yehuda. He's going to ask a kasha from the Brisa of Rabbi Yehuda. We're misinterpreting the Brisa. This statement of the Brisa, Ad Kama Beis HaSayim, which indicated that if it's more than 2 sa, then the halacha changes. It's going on the Reisha, you're right. The Reisha, which spoke about a Sela, which is Sayachid, 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide. But meant to interpret it as follows. This is what the Brisa is saying. When we have a boulder which is Sayachid, you cannot transfer to the Yam, which is a Kamas. You're meant to make an inference, a diak here. Fine, you can't transfer from the Yam to the Sela, and vice versa. But on the Sela itself, can you carry throughout the entire Sela without restrictions? Yeah. So this is a diak. The Brisa didn't explicitly speak about this, but this is a diak from the Brisa. Brisa tells us you can't transfer from the Sela to the Yam, but you could transfer on the Sela itself without any concern. Up until what point? How large is that rock, which will still allow? Up until what point will we still allow transfer on that rock itself? Ad Beis HaSayim. Only up until 2 sa. Because if it's greater than 2 sa, that rock, that top surface of that rock is considered like a Kamas, in which case you cannot carry more than 4 amas. It's very simple. When the Brisa tells us that there's a 2 sa limit, it's referring to a very specific halacha on the rock itself, just as Eruvin tells us. A area which is mukav machitzis, not hukav ladira. If it's up until 2 sa, you can be metaltal throughout. If it's greater than 2 sa, you cannot. That's one teretz. Rav Ashi Amar Lo Elam Harish. Certainly, the statement of the Brisa, which gives us that 2 sa benchmark, it's referring to the Reish. However, instead of Rava's pshat, that it's in reference to carrying on the rock itself, actually, it's in reference to carrying from the rock to the Yam, meaning that if it's greater than 2 sa, you can transfer from the Yam to the rock and back. Why? Says Rav Ashi, Hein Amru, Ve'Hein Amru. There are 2 halachas here, and both was said by the Chacham. Explains the Gemara. Hein Amru, the Chacham told us, Karfef, Yasser Beis HaSayim, Shluk Ladira. If you have a karfef greater than 2 sa, which is not enclosed for dira, a metalton boy el b'dal damas. You can only transfer through it within 4 amas, because they consider it like a karmas. That's one halacha that they taught us. Ve'Hein Amru. They also taught us another halacha. A very general concept. A metalton, which is sayachad the karmas. One cannot transfer from a sayachad to a karmas. The point is that a karmas can be confused with Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, they didn't allow carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Karmas, lest it lead to transferring from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so we have 2 separate halachas. One is, don't transfer from Rosh Hashanah to Karmas, and don't be metaltal more than 4 amas in an area which is greater than 2 sa, lo yikav ladir. Now, generally speaking, these 2 halachas are fully compatible. There's no conflict between these 2 halachas. However, in our case, in our story of the Sela Shabiyam, a conflict has arisen, as the Gemara will explain. Beis HaSayim d'shorei l'tatuli b'kulei. If you have an area which is Beis HaSayim, in which case you can be metaltal throughout the entire area without any restriction, like a Sela sitting in the Yam, which is no greater than 2 sa. Asir Rabban l'tatuli, lo iman Yam l'toichoi, v'lo l'toichoi Yam. Therefore, the Chacham had no problem telling us you cannot transfer from that boulder, which is 2 sa or less, which is a full-fledged sayachid, to the Yam, which is a karmas. Nor can you transfer from the Yam to the boulder. Why? Why? My time is Shesayachid Gmori. It's a proper Shesayachid. There's no concern of confusion. However, Yasser Beis Osayim, when we have a boulder which is greater in size than Tusa, the Asel Tatuli Bekuli, in which case you cannot be metaltal throughout the entire area. We're restricted to 4 amas, because it appears like a Sarab, like a Carmelis. So in that case, Chachamim made a special exemption. Shoru Rabbanan L'Tatuli Mitoichel Yam M'Yam L'Toichel. In this case, when we have a boulder which is greater than Tusa, which does not allow carrying throughout that boulder, we treat it like a Carmelis. As a result of that, the Chacham allowed one to transfer from that boulder to the Yam and back. Why? My time, why? Because otherwise, if you would not allow that transfer, Dilma Amri Shesayachid Gmori, people will conclude, rightfully so, you know why you cannot transfer from the boulder to the Yam? Because this boulder is a full-fledged Shesayachid. And what's going to happen then? What is that going to lead to? For also little Tuli Bekuli. People are going to go ahead and carry throughout the entire boulder, which is more than 2 sa. So here we have a conflict, we have a dilemma. We have a boulder in the middle of the Yam, which is greater than 2 sa. So on the one hand, we treat it like a Rosh Hashanah. It's a proper Rosh Hashanah. It's around this mechitzis. And this does not allow transferring from that boulder to the Yam, or from the Yam to the boulder. So with regard to that halacha, we treat this boulder like a Rosh Hashanah. However, we have another aspect here. The top surface of that boulder, since it's greater than 2 sa, we treat it like a Carmelis. And you cannot transfer throughout the entire area. You're limited to 4 amas. So on the one hand, we're treating it like a Rosh Hashanah when it comes to transferring to and from the ocean. On the other hand, we want to treat it like a Carmelis as well, to disallow carrying throughout this entire area. Now, this is really a conflict, because if you consider it like a Rosh Hashanah and don't allow transferring to the Yam, it's going to lead to confusion. People will treat it like a proper Rosh Hashanah, and this will lead people to carry throughout the entire area, which we don't want them to do. Therefore, the Chacham decided to forego one halacha, to forego the isser of transferring from the boulder to the Yam. Let's allow that. What's that going to lead to? People now will treat this boulder like a Carmelis. That explains why Chacham allowed us to transfer from the boulder to the Yam, because it's a Carmelis. Oh, Carmelis! Now, we can't transfer on top of that Carmelis more than 4 amas. So that halacha will be preserved, will be ensured. So foregoing this halacha will ensure proper compliance of the other halacha. Let's forego the issur of transferring from the cellar to the Yam in order to benefit and ensure the fulfillment of the other halacha. So people treat this like a Carmelis and don't carry more than 4 amas on the surface of that boulder. Says the Gemara, why this preference? Why do you give priority to this halacha over that? U'maishna, what's the difference? Why do you prefer one halacha over the other? Why do you forego the issur of transferring from the boulder to the Yam? You allow that in order to ensure compliance with the other halacha, so that people will be careful to be metaltal on the boulder only 4 amas and no more. Why is this more important than that? Says the Gemara, carrying on the surface of the boulder is more common. However, transferring from the cellar to the Yam and back is not something which is so common. And we know that generally speaking, the Chacham only applied their gzera in a situation where it's common with shchiach. So in this case, when we have 2 separate elements here, there's the transfer from the Yam to the cellar, and we have the transferring on the cellar itself, and the cellar itself is more shchiach. It's something more common than transferring to the Yam. So, if we pit one against the other, and we have to forego one for the sake of the other, we prefer foregoing the issur transferring from the cellar to the Yam, which is not so shchiach. We allow that to happen, so that people now will view this rock as a Carmelis. It's going to highlight the fact that this rock is considered to be a Carmelis. That's why you can transfer to the Yam. And what is this going to do? It's going to ensure compliance with the other halacha. Now that it's a Carmelis, people will be careful when they are metaltal on that rock to carry no more than 4 amas. So in summation, Ula tells us in the name of Yochanan that a karf of Yosin Beis Hasayim Shlo Yikuf Ladira, we have this large enclosed area, non-residential area. So if it's more into a saw, minat Torah, it's a shayachid. Even with the Rabbanan, it's really considered a shayachid. It's only a chumrah that they added to consider it a karmelis, to not allow transferring, be metatal on that, in that karfif, more than 4 amos. So it's only a chumrah. However, according to Rav Ashi, we have a situation the Chachamim applied an element of kula as well, such in this case when we have a karfif, more than 2 saw, in this yam, we have to forego something. We have to allow transferring from the karfif to the yam. We have to treat it lekula like a karmelis in order to ensure compliance of the other halacha, so that the tiltal on the surface of this area will be limited to 4 amos. Continues the Gemara. Hahu Yenuka, there was this baby on the day of his bris milah that needed to be bathed with hot water. So they prepared the hot water, but it got spilled out. Ishtape chamime, his hot water got spilled out. Amalu Rabba, so Rabba told him, look, I have some hot water in my house. And his house was in the same chutzah as this baby. So Rabba told him, Neisu lechamimi, let them bring some hot water for the baby. Mi goy mi beisayf, my home. Amali Abaye. So Abaye told him, V'lei arvinan. Abaye also lived in that chutzah. He says, well, we didn't make an erev. How can you carry? Amalei. So Rabba responded, Nismacha shituf. We can rely on the shituf mavois. So although we didn't merge the usage of our chutzah, but we made a shituf between all the chatzeros. We merged everyone together for the sake of using the mavoi. Now, if you make a shituf mavois, that already encompasses everything, that includes everything. And we're all merged together. So that can substitute for the erev chatzeros and can allow carrying in the chatzir as well. Amar leisa, I responded, Hole shatfinan. We didn't even make a shituf either. Okay, so now we're stuck. So Rabbi said, Name relay lenachri, laisile. Tell a guy to go bring the water. Amar Abaye, boy lo isvi lamar. So Abaye said, I wanted to ask a kasha to Mar, to Rabba, to challenge this heter of asking a guy to bring the water. V'lo yishavkan Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef didn't allow me to ask the kasha. Why? The Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Kana. Because Rav Yosef said in the name of Kana, Ki avina be Rav Yehuda, when we learned by Rav Yehuda, Hava Amarlan, he taught us the following formula. B'daraisa, when it pertains to a suffix and issa daraisa, what do? Motzvina to yufta. First we ask the kasha. We work through it, we clear it up. And if it's all clear, b'hada avdina ma'isa, then we carry through. And we actually do the ma'is. However, with the Rabbanan, when it pertains to a suffix Rabbanan, we go l'kula, avdina ma'asa. First we carry through the ma'asa, we do it. And then we ask questions. And then we ask the kasha. Therefore, Rav Yosef didn't allow Abaye to challenge Rabba. First let him do it, and then you'll ask your kashas. So they asked the guy to bring it. After it was completed, Amar Lei, so Rav Yosef turned to Abaye and he said, My boys lo isvi lamar. What did you have in mind? What do you want to ask Rabba? Amar Lei, so Abaye responded, the Sanya, because the Brisa says, Hazor shvus. Sprinkling the paradoma water on the tummy is a Issa D'Rabbanan, it's a shvus. It appears like you're repairing, fixing the person. That can be done on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And likewise, telling a guy to do a malacha is also Issa D'Rabbanan. Ma zo shvus v'nedechas Shabbos, just as hazah, sprinkling the paraduma water is a shvus and can be done on Shabbos. Afel mirul nachri shvus v'nedechas Shabbos. Telling a guy to do a malacha is also Issa D'Rabbanan and does not override Shabbos. This was the brisa which I was going to use to challenge Rabbi. How could you ask a guy to bring the water? Amar Lei. So Rav Yosef responded, you can't compare. V'lo yishani lach. Is there no difference to you bein shvus the isbei ma'isa, l'shvus the lesbei ma'isa, between telling a guy to do a malacha, to do a ma'asa malacha, which is certainly more problematic than our case where it was just a shvus lesbei ma'isa. He told him to do something, but not a malacha. He just told him to bring the water from one house and the chatzah to the other, which is only a d'Rabbanan. The hamar lo yamar l'nachar zil achem. Rabbi didn't tell the guy to go heat up the water, which is issa deraisa. He didn't tell him to do a malacha deraisa. He just told him to bring the water from one house to the other. It's only a d'Rabbanan, and therefore, in the case of a mitzvah, a case of necessity, like this baby who needed it for his bris milah, It certainly wouldn't pose any problem, and Rabbah acted correctly. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We began with the two questions that Rav Chizda asked Rav Sheshes regarding the halachas of bittul. Number one, where we have a Rosh Hashanah which was enclosed on Shabbos and turned into a chatzar between two homes. The question is, can the members of the homes be mevatel to each other to allow carrying within that newly enclosed area? The answer was no, because this place was totally exposed at the onset of Shabbos. And since during Ben Hashmashis, the members of the bottom of these homes on either side of Rosh Hashanah would not oyser each other and cannot have made an eruv with each other. So in this case, the concept of bittul as well has not been activated and cannot be applied during the Shabbos. In the second question, he described a case where there were Yisrael living with a nachri and a chatzar. They were here before Shabbos, but they failed to be soicher and be ma'arif. On Shabbos itself, however, the nachri passes away. The question is, can the Yisraelim go ahead and make bittul to allow carrying in the chatzar? The Gemara tells us, according to Rabbi Yehuda, certainly the answer is yes, because according to him, bittul can be applied practically in any case to allow carrying. According to Shmuel as well, in this case, bittul can be applied because this chatzar was eruv enabled during Ben Hashmashis. They could have approached the nachri, rented his property, and then done eruv. Therefore, bittul, which is contingent upon eruv, can be applied in this case. According to Rav Hamnuna, bittul won't apply because he does not consider this place to be eruv enabled, because you need to undergo that process. First be seicher, and only then be ma'arif. So this place wasn't really readily available for an eruv, and therefore he holds bittul cannot apply. We spoke about a nachri or Yisrael which live in a mavi and were not accounted for. So if this nachri or Yisrael have a pesach, their own private exit, their pesach from their chatzar out to a open area, perhaps they prefer that pesach and they're not considered to be primary users of the mavi and don't have to be reckoned for. So look at as follows. When it comes to a nachri, if his pesach is open to a bika, which is a valley, then he certainly prefers that route. It's an open air, spacious area. He does not have to be included in the configuration of the mavi. If his pesach opens to a karfif, a large enclosed area, a storage area, if it's greater than 2 sa, it's considered to be large and spacious enough for him, and he'll go out that way. He doesn't have to be included in the mavi. If it's only 2 sa or less, in this case it's not large enough for him, and he must be accounted for in the mavi. When it comes to Yisrael, if it's open to a karfif which is greater than 2 sa, he can't really use that. He can't carry there on Shabbos, therefore he must be included in the mavi configuration. If it is 2 sa in size, in which case he can carry there, then he certainly prefers that route rather than using the mavi, and therefore he doesn't have to be included in the mavi equation. We concluded with Ula telling us in the name of Rav Yechanan that a karfif, which was lahuka for ladira and is larger than 2 sa, minat Torah, it's a full-fledged Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbanan, however, imposed a chumrah here, did not allow tiltul within this area more than 4 amas. We concluded with the story of the 8-day-old baby who needed some hot water for his bris milah, and Rava told him to instruct the guy to transfer some hot water from his house to the house of the baby, which was within the same chatzar.